Hey guys, welcome back to another video. Today we'll be looking at some common numbers that you should all be memorizing and you should know off by heart. It'll basically take your math skills to that next level, no matter whether you're in high school, primary school, or university level. Okay, so we're going to start off with converting fractions to decimals and then decimals to percentages. Alright, we're going to keep things nice and simple, and we're going to start off with 1. 1 in fraction form means a whole, right? So, and in decimal form, simply 1.0, which is just 1. And in percentage form, it's 100%. So a whole of something, a whole apple is 100%. You know, there's nothing missing. It's complete. Alright, then we're going to take this 1 and we're going to put it over 2. This line just means divide. So 1 divided by 2, or 1 on 2 is our fraction form, and in decimal form it's simply 0.5, which is 50%. 1 on 3 is 0.33, which is simply 33%. 1 on 4 is simply 0.25, so simply 100. 1 divided by 4, or 100 divided by 4 is 25, which so therefore 25%. 1 on 5 is 0.20 or 0.2, whichever you're comfortable with, 0.20, therefore 20%. 1 on 6 is 0.167, and just to keep things nice and neat, I'm just going to round it down to 16%. That's close enough. And again, it keeps, you see how they've all got 6 in it, so that can help with you memorizing. 1 on 7 is 0.14, which is simply 14%. 1 on 8 is 0.125, which is simply 12.5%, but I'm going to keep it nice and simple, 12%. And then 1 on 9 is 0.11111, we'll just go 0.11, which is 11%. And finally, 1 on 10 is 0.1, which is simply 10%. Now the key things to note here is that we've started by 1 and we've carried that 1 all the way to the end, except we've divided it by 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So it's very easy to memorize. You know your 1, 2, 3s off by heart. Everyone knows it. So simply, this line, remember, whether it's written as sideways or horizontal, it's still a fraction. So you could see it in textbooks or your teacher writing it as 1 on 2, and this line means to divide. Okay, it's the fraction line. Or you could write it sideways, it still means the same thing. Alright, so don't get confused by that. And again, we started off here by 1 in decimal form, and we've divided that 1 into 2, which is 0.5. Then again, divided that 1 by 3, which is 0.33. So you can see how it decreases. And same with the percentage form. 100, you divide 100 by 2, you get 50. Then 33%. If you divide 100 by 3, and 25, four lots of 25 is 100%. Again, it's decreasing, as you can see, and there's a bit of a pattern here. Okay, so make sure you memorize these numbers because it'll help you no matter what you're doing. It's just life skills, math skills that are just necessary to have in your toolkit. Alright guys, now we'll be looking at some common squares, again part of the common numbers to memorize. So common squares. Alrighty. First off, we are going to start off with 1 again. 1 squared is 1. Now again, all this is saying is the 2 is saying that 1, there's 2 lots of 1s multiplied with each other. So 1 times 1 is 1. So any number multiplied by itself, remember, always is 1. 2 to the power of 2, or 2 squared, same thing, is simply 4, because 2 multiplied by itself is 4. 3 squared, again, 3 times 3 is 9. So 3 squared is 9. And if you want to see it more clearly, here, oh, not 4. That's what we did before, is 9. So again, as you can see, it's quite straightforward. Again, just make sure that you know this because it'll come in handy. And again, the key thing here is also knowing your times tables. So 4 squared is 16. 5 squared is 25. 6 squared is 36. 7 squared is 49. 8 squared 64. 9 squared 81. And just to complete things, 10 squared is simply 100. So we started off with 1 and we've gone all the way to 100. We started off with 1, we've gone all the way to 10. Again, there's a pattern. Again, the square, or 1 to the power of 2, 1 to the power 2 to the power of 2 is simply that number multiplied by itself. Or another way is that there's 2 lots of that number, or whatever that number that may be. Alrighty, so now we are going to go backwards. Alright, so I guess we'll call it common square roots. Which is that symbol. So square root of 1 is always 1. Okay, square root of 2. Well, yeah, no, 1.4. So basically, again, I don't want you guys to remember every little square root because that's not what we're going here, but just some common ones, some basic ones. These are some a bit more advanced. So if you're in the lower primary school, high school, unless you're really keen, you don't need to know this. Maybe college, maybe university level, maybe just general mathsy subjects. Just nice to know these common square roots. Okay, so these common square roots do come in handy. 1 squared is 1, square root of 2 is 1.4, square root of 3 is 1.7. And the square root of 4 is 2. So other than that, I wouldn't worry too much about it. Just know that if you had these common squares, going backwards is simply, so you'd be given this one, you'd be given, for example, square root of 9 is 3, square root of 16 is 4, square root of okay, so if I was to write this beside these form, it's simply just going backwards. So if you are given the answer square root of 16 is simply 4, square root of 25 is simply 5, because 5 times 5 is 25, square root of 36 is 6, because 6 times 6 is 36, square root of 49 is 7, etc, etc. Some other common squares that can come up is also common square root, is also, for example, we'll start off with square root of 144, which is 12. So 12 times 12 is 144, but you can also be a decimal. Like they can also, just to see if you're able to recognize this simple pattern recognition question, they could just be like, they give you 1 square root of 1.44. Most people just freak out and be like, there's no way that I know what square root of 1.44 is without a calculator. So if I didn't mention, these common numbers are to be memorized, meaning without calculator, because it's important to know this without using a calculator. Square root of 144 is 12. Square root of 1.44, if you remove the decimal, you're back at 144, right? So it'll be 12, but you add the decimal because there's a decimal here, and so the square root of 1.44 is 1.2. So that's quite nice and neat. Another example would be square root of 169, which is 13, and then square root of 1.69 will be 1.3 as before. And another thing that another skill that you guys should be able to use, and I encourage, is to be able to round off. 169 up here is the same as 100. Is close enough. It's very close to 170. So basically, if if you know the square root of 169, then you also know the square root of 170. Basically, close enough, good enough. 170 is, again, it's going to be 13, and with the decimal 1.7, it's going to be 1.3. As before, it's close enough, so you're allowed to round it off, and that basically is also a skill, an important skill to learn. Let's illustrate this a little bit further. I guess this is the same as, 12 times 12, which equals 144. Okay, here 1.2 times 1.2 is 1.44. So yeah, I hope that makes sense. Those are some common numbers, and these are the common numbers that we should all be memorizing. So first off, we started with fractions to decimals to percentages, right? Okay, again, recognize the patterns, recognize that, this is, and I've done it in order from 1 to 10, because if you get stuck, you can always write it out and sort of figure out the rest. And then following that, I also mentioned that common squares are important. Again, it's important to know your times tables, but also this will help speed up your maths a lot, especially under time constraints. And common square roots, I wouldn't worry too much about the common square roots. This is just a side for those that need to have skills like that. But it's important to be able to estimate that 169 is close enough to 170, therefore the answers are pretty much the same. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching this video. If any part of this video helped you out, make sure to let me know. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up, and I'll see you guys in the next video. And don't forget to subscribe, because that helps me out a lot. So thanks for watching.